It is an honor for me to welcome you to this virtual production of Witness Theater. It is Self-Help's mission to serve as the last surviving relative to victims of Nazi persecution. Since we brought Witness Theater to New York in 2012, it has transformed the lives of the survivors and students who have participated, and the thousands of people like you who have watched Witness Theater performances. The performance you are about to see honors and shares the stories of Judith, Ellen, Jehuda, and Fred, celebrates these extraordinary individuals and reminds us of the strength of human resilience. It also honors the story of Eva, which the group shares in her memory. Eva passed away in March, but she left an indelible mark on this Witness Theater group. Unique to this group are its students. The 8 remarkable young people you are about to meet hail from a range of schools and backgrounds across the New York metropolitan area. In the last year, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced us all to adapt. Our Witness Theater programs were held virtually, and we saw 3 different groups of students and survivors share stories, build relationships, and support each other in the virtual world. The survivors' resilience, not only in the face of the Holocaust, but today as they face the pandemic, serves as an invaluable example to the students and to ourselves. Our deepest thanks to UJA-Federation of New York, a sincere partner, for their continuing support of Witness Theater in New York through the years. As always, we are inspired by the 2 generations who have come together to ensure that the legacy of survival is not forgotten and to honor the memories of those who died. We thank all of you who have come to bear witness and to share this powerful experience with us.
Hi, my name is Joy Radish. I'm a drama therapist, and I have had the honor of working with this year's Witness Theater group to create the video you are about to see called Witness Theater: How We Stand Together. One of the resounding statements that I've heard both the survivors and the students in our group express to each other during the last several weeks is, "I feel like I know you so well, even though we've never been in the same space together." The fact is, our survivors and our students have gone through the entire Witness Theater process remotely on Zoom during a year of collective and unprecedented challenges. Our group saw each other through the pandemic, meeting every week, and also navigated the death of one of our beloved survivors, Eva Firestone. And although the remote nature of this year's process meant that we could never truly look into each other's eyes, it seemed to inspire our group to look more deeply with their hearts and with their souls. Our video is called How We Stand Together. This title not only honors the group's determination to create the video, but also honors a value system that emerged throughout our process. Our adults not only shared about enduring the atrocities of the Holocaust, but also shared about how these experiences informed their ability to adapt to all of the unknowns in life. They also shared about the essential value of standing up for kindness and justice in the face of adversity. The students in our group took these ideas to heart and in turn brought empathy, curiosity, compassion, and strength to their portrayal of our survivors and their loved ones, which you'll see in this video. The performance you're about to witness was created by a group of people who have never actually been in the same room together, but who have come to understand and to know each other from the deepest parts of themselves.
So Witness Theater made my year. Due to the pandemic, I did not think this year would make me feel happy, but thanks to the survivors and our group, I feel alive again.
I feel connected with the survivor because I also am an immigrant and understood the difficulty they face.
I feel connected to the adults through hearing their stories and also through their empathy.
As a Jew, I am connected to all of the survivors because of our shared Jewish history.
I feel connected to the survivors through our shared Jewish history. Their passion to pass their stories down to the future generations mirrors my passion to learn about their stories.
I feel a strong connection to all of the survivors and to our group because we express parts of our lives that were challenging and were open and vulnerable with one another.
I have had such an amazing time listening to the survivor stories and connecting with them. It has taught me so much throughout this difficult year and has been so refreshing. This will stay with me for the rest of my life.
Well, I want everybody who watches this program, this show, to remember the Holocaust, but a lot of people remember and a lot of people don't know about the Holocaust. Especially these students here, they're very interested and they like to know, they're very knowledgeable and they want to learn more.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of deniers around who say it's a hoax, the Holocaust was a hoax. And it's really important for us to remember that it really did happen. And I think that the survivors themselves, including myself, have to be around for a long, long time to say, yes, it really happened.
Unfortunately, the racism still exists in our time. The Holocaust was created by racism. Now we see that, unfortunately, the racism comes again. We saw this in Minneapolis when this officer killed Floyd in most barbarian way. Also on January 6th at the Capitol, many went out with signs, Auschwitz, 6 million is not enough. So we have to keep our eyes open and fight any racism whatsoever.
Fight for people. Stand up for what you believe in and don't let bullies or dictators or things you don't believe in. Don't let anybody stop what you believe in. Fight. Be strong. And stand up for your people and be good, kind adults.
It was the 1960s in New York City. I was very much alone. I had already lost so much. I had been uprooted from my birthplace in Germany, then from France. I had lost my mother and father to the concentration camps. I had lost my grandfather. I had lost my second mother, Maman, when I came to America. And I had lost some essential parts of myself as well. My confidence, my faith in God, yet something kept me going.
No matter how alone you feel,
No matter how great the pain,
you are loved.
I was encouraged by a friend to buy a guitar and learn how to play. And I began experimenting with my voice. And through singing, I started to connect my head to my heart, my breath to my soul. Tell me, where can I go? There's no place I can see. Where to go, where to go? Every door is closed to me. I was born in Berlin in February of 1938 to Irma and Joseph Koeppel. We also lived with my Opa, Jacob. When I was born, things were already unsteady in Berlin. When Kristallnacht happened in November of that year, my father was arrested and sent to a Nazi concentration camp. He was then transferred to a concentration camp number 7 in Fresnay-sur-Sarthe for 2 weeks and was told,
"You were ordered to leave the Reich within 8 weeks. In case you do not satisfy this order, you'll be forced to leave."
And so my father moved fast and returned home to us. And then my mother, my father, and my grandfather thought they found the solution.
There's a ship.
A ship?
A ship of dreams.
And so my mother, my father, and my Opa booked tickets on the infamous SS St. Louis with 937 other souls, mostly German Jewish refugees searching for a better home. We departed from Hamburg on May 13th, 1939.
We felt such joy and wonder, but it wasn't to be. For no one wanted us. For no one let us in. First, we tried Cuba.
"You can't come here."
And then we tried the US. But,
"You can't come here."
and so we opted for Canada.
"You can't come here."
Maybe just a few? How many Jews will you take?
"None is too many."
And so, the SS St. Louis turned back to Europe.
The ship finally docked in Antwerp, Belgium, after a month of us being at sea. 4 nations decided to accept Jewish refugees from the St. Louis. My family went to France, and we settled in a town called Nye. We rented a small apartment on top of a furniture factory. Our landlord was to become one of the most important people in my life. She was as glamorous as a movie star and as kind as any human being could be.
Mama!
Ma chérie.
I don't know how to ask this, but if something were to happen to us, will you?
If anything happens, I will take care of Judy.
The German influence in France was growing, and yet during those next couple of years, there was some normalcy, some sweetness.
Mama! Mama, can I try some?
My love, it's not what you think.
Please, Mama, please.
You really want to try them?
Ew! Ew!
Wake up! Irma, Judy.
What is happening?
Opa, wake up!
Joseph Koeppel, Irmgard Koeppel, you are under arrest. They must leave at once.
Opa. Don't cry, Opa.
Put on your coat, little Judy, and say goodbye to Opa for now. Iliette?
I promise.
First, the Vichy police took us to a detention camp in the south of France called Goes. No one knew what was happening.
Then, they moved us to another internment camp, Rivesalt. We knew we wouldn't be there for long.
There were rumors in the air.
Joseph, we must act. Judy, Mommy and Daddy have to go away, and we don't know when we'll be back.
Judy, let's take a walk.
Okay, Papa.
My father and I walked in the darkness until we came to a lit room where somebody greeted us. He gathered all of his courage.
Judy, look over there. Just a minute.
Papa? In that instant, my life changed forever. I learned later that my parents were taken to Auschwitz, where they were murdered. I would like to think that they held on to each other until the end. The next day, Mama's husband, Papa Enard, came to the OSA and took me back to live with him, Mama Suzy, their 2 children, and Opa. They risked their lives to save me. I was in poor health and the doctors did not know if I would survive. Mama soothed the sores on my body and sang me back to health.
Alma d'amor, raditon tra te soltanto. Trapudicu, carne pala de l'entendre.
I felt safe as part of the Enard family, even after my Opa died. Mama, out of respect for my parents, did not convert me to Christianity. Time went on. In 1945, the Nazis invaded Nye and took over our house.
Now, ma chérie, you must be very, very careful. Remember, you are a French girl. No one must know you are Jewish. You must cover your ears with your hair, and you do not speak German.
Why, hello, young lady. Madame, what a pretty girl. Just like her mother.
You see? You really are my mama.
I stayed with the Enards for 1.5 years after the war ended. Then, fulfilling her promise to my parents, Maman took me to the office of the UJA in Paris. They arranged for me to come to the United States and get adopted by my father's brother and his wife.
Mama, please don't go.
No matter how alone you feel, no matter how great the pain,
I love you.
I boarded the Autos d'Or and arrived in America on September 9, 1946. The next years were painful. I stopped speaking and writing in French and was forced to give up writing to my mom. I finished high school and got married. I gave birth to my son, Gary Joseph Steele, in 1960, and 6 years later to my daughter, Allison Irma. I later divorced my husband. I often felt scared and alone. And that is how I found my voice. I started to sing for hospitals, nursing homes, synagogues, ladies' clubs, and for Israel bonds. Something in me had opened, and I began to heal. My healing journey was multifaceted and involved many influences and people, including my lifelong teacher, Rabbi Joseph Gelderman. I became a cantor, an interfaith minister, and after surviving cancer, a Reiki master. By channeling the universal force energy through my hands, I learned to
let it go.
Yet there was something unresolved. In 1991, I went to a Hidden Children's Conference at the Marriott Hotel in Manhattan. I watched them honor saviors from Poland and France who risked their lives hiding Jewish children. Something tugged at my heartstrings.
Mama should be here.
So after 46 years, I decided it was time to call.
Hello?
Mama, c'est Judith.
Judith, c'est toi?
And I booked a plane ticket to France.
Mama, thank you for saving my life. I know you risked your life for me.
Oh, my darling. It was the righteous thing to do. No matter how alone you feel, no matter how great the pain, you are loved.
Dear Fred, after all that you've been through, we often wonder, what gave you strength when you were all alone? How did you survive?
I have one answer. Someone up there was looking out for me. Baruch Hashem. And of course, I was also lucky in some ways. I also had a friend.
Fred was deported to the Stutthof concentration camp when he was 15 years old. He had already survived life in the Riga ghetto and 2 other concentration camps where he witnessed the worst of human cruelty. At Stutthof, Fred's job was to paint U-boats, and although he was used to forced labor, he became sick with typhus and was incredibly weak. One morning, Fred awoke to the sounds of Russian soldiers celebrating and saw that the German guards were gone.
Young man, you are free.
What? I don't understand.
Get up, and eat something, son. We've got bacon. Now tell us, what will you do with your freedom? Что ты сделаешь со своей свободой?
Fred knew that with his newfound freedom came the price of grief, for there were many losses to process, and yet, despite significant loss, he was not alone. For liberated at the same time, from the same camp, was someone Fred had known all of his life. In fact, we were from the same town, from the same street. How we found one another and how we survived was perhaps nothing short of a miracle.
You?
Yes, you?
It's me too.
What now?
We must go home to see who is left.
But how? It's a long way from Stutthof to Würzburg.
We will find a way.
We hitchhiked from Poland all the way back to Würzburg, Germany, our hometown, and it was on that long journey that Fred told me what happened.
My father, Justin, was born in Emmershausen, Germany, and my mother, Lily, was born in a town called Hessdorf. They met in Würzburg, Germany, where then my father was an apprentice as a tailor. They got married in 1925 and had 2 children. Ilse, my older sister. 2 years later, they had me. We lived in an apartment above the tailor shop. My father was a religious man and a mensch.
Then suddenly, everything changed. During the night of Kristallnacht, Justin was arrested and taken to the concentration camp called Buchenwald.
Mother, they are burning the shul.
Yes, Ilsa.
And Father's store.
Yes, Fred.
What will we do?
Keep going.
After 90 days, Justin returned from Buchenwald and the family moved to a small ghetto nearby where all Jews were forced to wear yellow stars. Justin continued to work as a tailor, sewing suits for Jews who were lucky enough to get visas to leave Germany.
But what will happen to us?
I don't know, my son.
What will we do?
Keep going. Keep praying.
On November 27, 1941, the Zeilberger family was informed that they would be on a transport headed east to an unknown destination. There were 202 residents from Würzburg that were part of this first deportation, including Fred and his family. The train stopped briefly in Langwasser, a concentration camp on the outskirts of Nuremberg, where 800 more Jews were forced onto the train.
Please protect us. Please look over us. Please look out for us. Please.
Finally, the train stopped somewhere in Latvia, and the passengers walked through the wilderness until they reached their destination.
Jungfernhof.
This used to be a farm.
We sleep in barns.
We watch our backs.
Every few days, 20 more transports of Jews come in.
1,000 or so each time.
Like cattle.
I kill them with gas or shoot them in the woods.
The ground is so cold.
Somehow, I keep going. I look down. I don't ask questions. I empty suitcases. I stack bodies like firewood. The transports stop coming. Cover it up and make a farm they command. So now I shepherd the sheep. Go this way, go that way. A woman, a stranger, she sees me. Every morning she leaves me food. I keep going.
Of the approximately 4,000 Jews who were transported to Jungfernhof that winter, only 148 survived, including Fred and his family. After the camp was dissolved, they were sent to the Jewish ghetto in Riga.
At least we are together.
At least there's a roof.
Tell me, where will you go?
To the factory, Mama.
To clean the streets.
The ships at the harbor.
Tell me, where will you go today?
To clean the street.
To the factory.
The ships at the harbor. To load and unload.
Tell me, where will you?
You didn't think you worked, you survived day to day.
Fred's family was moved to Kaiserwald, a concentration camp in Latvia, when the Riga ghetto was dissolved. Kaiserwald was a labor camp, and the conditions were wretched.
What do you do?
Keep going.
How do you feel?
Keep working.
What do you eat?
Whatever you can.
In the summer of 1944, the Red Army advanced toward Latvia, and the Germans evacuated the prisoners of Kaiserwald, shipping them to another camp, Stutthof, in Poland. When they got to Stutthof, the Nazis separated the women from the men. This was the last time Fred saw his mother and his sister. Both Fred and his father grew ill.
Son, remember.
His father died just a few days before they were liberated.
Young man, you are free.
So, my friend, that's what happened to us.
My family was on the same transport from Würzburg.
Let's go back.
We hitchhiked back and we found that 90% of the town had been destroyed. Just outside the town, Herb and I discovered a facility that had once been a Jewish home for the elderly. We stayed there for 2 years with 13 other Holocaust survivors who had no other family and nowhere else to go. They fed us and we had somewhere where we could sleep in peace.
I think this is the second beginning of a very beautiful friendship.
From that time on, we would end up doing almost everything together. Come to think of it.
As a matter of fact, we came to America on the same ship, the SS Ernie Pyle, in January of 1947. At that point, you didn't need an affidavit if you were a war orphan.
We were 17 years old.
But that a nickel to our names, we went to a Jewish orphanage in the Bronx, and then lived one block away from each other in Washington Heights with our respective aunts and uncles.
There's more to our story, but here's something my friend Fred would never tell you on his own. For despite all that he went through during the Holocaust, he grew up to be a man of exquisite character. Honest, kind, strong, and this may not come to us as a surprise, incredibly hardworking.
I started working as a butcher and went to night school. In 1951, I was drafted, and when I came out of the army, I became a partner in a wholesale business, Heidi's Meats.
On Fred's wedding day, I should know because I was there, his aunt and uncle gave him a very telling gift. For years, Fred had paid them for room, board, and living expenses. When he got married, they gave every dollar back to him.
In 1956, I married the love of my life, Elaine. Together we raised 3 children, Linda, Jay, and Raven. I have lived a good life. I turned 91 last December, and just a few weeks ago, Herbert and I got our COVID vaccine on the same day. Anyway, I survived not because I was stronger, not because I was smarter, but because God was looking after me.
Pnei Shabbat Nakabela Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala Pnei Shabbat Nakabela Shabbat Nekabela Lecha Dodi Lekrat Kala Pnei Shabbat Nekabela Pnei Shabbat Nekabela.
I must tell you, I was extremely, extremely lucky. People say, well, what was it like on the Kindertransport? Did you know exactly what was happening? But I didn't know. You understand that say, don't you?
Yes, Ellen, I understand.
You learn to adapt, and you learn to be independent. And when you're young, you don't ask questions about what's happening here or there, even when scary things happen.
You just go with the flow.
I grew up in Rexingen, Germany with my mother, my father, and my older sister Inga, and my maternal grandmother. From what I remember, I was happy. My first memory of fear was during Kristallnacht in November 1938, when I was 4 years old. I remember my father hiding from the Germans in a horse trough behind our house. Thank goodness they didn't find him. Then, one morning in July of 1939, my mother and my father woke up Inga and me. They dressed us in 3 layers of clothing and bundled us in our winter coats in the summer. I had no idea what was going on. My mother took us on a train to Stuttgart. When we arrived, we were met by our leader, who introduced us to the other children who were on the kinder transport. We boarded another train to Belgium, and once we arrived, we got on a ship that would take us to England.
You stay on that side, Ellen. We have to try and sleep.
Okay, where are we going?
Funny, the things you remember. The next morning, we went for breakfast. I had white bread for the first time.
Inga, this cake is weird.
Silly, it's just bread.
Those are the types of recollections I have. I didn't know that my father's brother, Uncle Sally, had arranged for us to be on the kinder transport. And I didn't know that my parents had corresponded with our future foster family in Manchester. And I didn't know that they had arranged for my mother's sister to pick us up in London. But how could I have known that my father, my mother, Inga, and I had sponsors to America? When we arrived in Manchester, a car was there to pick us up and take us to our foster home. What a gorgeous home it was, with central heating. But the best part was meeting our foster parents.
Girls? Now who is who? Oh, that's right. You don't speak English, now do you? Welcome to your new home.
Dear girls, you can call me Aunt Ray, and this is your Uncle Willie.
Uncle Willie was a wonderful man, a Russian Jewish immigrant who worked in the linen business and had started out with nothing. Anyway, that was in July. In September, Inga and I started school, and war broke out in England.
Inga, Ellen, you'll be taking your suitcases with you to school today.
But why?
They decided to evacuate us due to the bombings. At the train station, Uncle Willie arranged to meet up with his friend, Mr. Dunn, and his two daughters, Mari, who was 12, and Adele, who was 6. They were also being evacuated. And most importantly, they both spoke English. I'll never forget the look on Uncle Willie's face when he looked at Mari.
You must not ever leave these girls. No way. The four of you must stick together no matter what.
Yes, sir.
Inga, Ellen, I will see you again soon. I promise.
Come on now. We have a train to catch.
Why, hello, girls. My name is Maud Bailey.
And I'm Muriel Bailey.
I see we have 2 sets of sisters.
We understand, sisters. I think you'll like it here in Fleetwood. We have very good schools.
Well, okay then, girls. Get your things and let's go to the house.
I'm telling you, we were extremely lucky. Aunt Muriel was the principal of the elementary school, and Aunt Maud was the justice of the peace. And so we settled in the town of Fleetwood, England, and into our very large house. What was a typical day like? Well, let me tell you. When we woke up, we had to make our beds so that the maid Edith didn't have to do it. We sat down for breakfast together, drinking tea and eating toast. We went to school, came back home for lunch, and went back to school until 5 p.m. After school, we drink tea. Then we had to don our woolen stockings because they'd always get holes. Aunt Muriel gave me piano lessons, and Aunt Maud tutored me in reading, which I had a hard time with. But eventually, I became a bookworm. Like I said, we were extremely lucky. And yet, something was missing for me.
I need to be hugged.
So that was what life was like until the summer of 1944. We would go back to Manchester from time to time to have the Jewish holidays with Uncle Willie and Ray Charlotte and their daughters, and then go back to Fleetwood again. I should add that my parents knew where we were, and they knew we were safe. They had both made it safely to America and were living in New York City. We would get letters from them from time to time with chocolates.
To our daughters, Inga and Ellen, we hope you are doing well in England. Give our regards to Willie and to the Bailey sisters. We are fine here in New York after a cold winter. We expect you are doing well in school and making good marks. Love from your mother and your father.
When do you think we can go there, Inga?
We will go when the time is right.
But I want to be in America now. In New York, people's dreams come true.
During the winter of 1944, the war was winding down. Mari and Adele left Aunt Maud and Muriel's and returned to their parents in Manchester. Uncle Willie arranged for Inga and I to stay in a hostel in Blackpool with other German Jewish refugee girls. It was a very unhappy time for us. Finally, in February of 1945, Uncle Willie drove us to Liverpool and we boarded the MS area. I had dreamed of this trip for many years, yet there were terrible storms and I was seasick every single day. We docked in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and took a train from Canada all the way to Penn Station.
I've been waiting all of my life. Will they hug me? Will we go to the movie? To the library? To Broadway? Will I be the girl they've been dreaming of?
When Inga and I got off the train, I recognized my mother, but I didn't recognize my father at first.
Inga, is that Tom?
Shh. Ellen, go say hi.
Mother?
Hello? Hi, Father.
My daughters.
So we finally made it to Washington Heights. My parents lived in a tenement apartment, you know, the kind where the tank is above the toilet. It was not the New York I had dreamed of. And as for my parents, they were in for a shock. Inga and I were not the obedient young girls they expected we would be. By that time, I had become very independent.
Sometimes the clothes are given just don't fit.
And so by the time I was 14, I went to work. First, I worked for a bathing suit company. Then in high school, I got a job at an auto dealer. I worked even after I married the love of my life, Joe, and kept working after I raised our 2 boys. I didn't retire in full until 2016. Life made me very independent. Through it all, I was so lucky to have Inga by my side. It means everything to feel loved, accepted, and understood.
I grew up in Iași, Romania, a city where Jews made up to 50% of the total population. We owned businesses, participated in civic life, and culture. We didn't question whether we belonged. We belonged. Although there had always been anti-Semitism in Romania, they tolerated us.
Yes, we tolerated you, but for the time being, what you didn't know as a child was that there was a growing right-wing movement here in Romania. We blame the Jews for everything that went wrong.
My father, Shalom Evron, was part owner of a big textile factory. He had not one, but 2 stores in Iași. My mother, Pila, was originally from Poland. She showered me with love. She took me to the mountains on vacation in the summer. And as for me, I was a lucky kid. I played accordion. I rode around the neighborhood on my bicycle, and I was the first kid in Iași to own an electric toy car.
This is what it feels like to belong.
But then things changed for the worse in Romania.
In August of 1940, Romania formed an alliance with Germany. The Romanian king signed a brutal piece of legislation that racialized Jews and encouraged their exclusion from Romanian life. The message was, if you were a Jew, it was all your fault.
Why are we going to war?
Because of the Jews.
Why are we poor?
Because of the Jews.
Why is my grandfather sick?
Because the Jews are communists. Now, what have you learned?
It's because of the Jews.
Jehuda Evron, starting tomorrow, you will no longer be permitted to attend school here.
Am I in trouble? What did I do?
You're a Jew.
We had to wear yellow stars that marked us Jews.
Hey, Jew!
I'm just trying to get home.
Bloody Jew, go back to Palestine.
This happened frequently. It was frightening and humiliating. Iași became an open ghetto. The restriction against Jews grew.
Mama? Hello?
Jehuda, my dear, we were worried you wouldn't make it back before curfew. Did they throw rocks at you again? Oh, my dear.
Jehuda, come, sit. I was just telling your uncles the plan.
Go on, Salam.
If we transfer the business into Nikolai Rutskoy's name, we can keep the business. He will give it back when things get better.
And you trust that this goy has the best interest in mind?
He had never deceived me before.
It's an idea.
Still, how bad could it get?
Many Jews found non-Jews to take over their businesses. My father, meanwhile, started to work as a street cleaner. We were given ration cards for food. We survived on bread and eggs, things like that.
And once in a while, a treat from black market, if we could afford it.
I went to school at the synagogue formed by our community. You see, we improvise life. And while we figured out how to survive, that anti-Semitism in Romania grew to fever pitch.
By 1941, Romania was set to invade the Soviet Union. We Romanians saw the Jews as an internal security threat because we claimed they were all communists. Then in June, the Soviets dropped bombs not once, but twice on Iași. And guess who we blamed? Then, the evil dictator, Ion Antonescu made an official phone call to the commander of the Iasi garrison and told him, "It's time."
I knew it would come to this.
They're pillaging homes now. I don't know if we are safe here.
I don't trust that we're any safer getting cleared by the police.
Mama, I saw dead bodies.
I know, Jehuda.
Whatever happens, we will stay here together.
Salam?
You're safe?
So far, so good. Listen, UJA-Federation and I are going to the station to get cleared.
I don't think that's wise.
I'm sure they'll understand when we show them our medals, and when they understand that we served for years in the army, they'll let us go. How could we possibly be communists?
No, it is unwise. I beg of you, please don't go. Please.
Salam, you're too cynical. We'll be fine.
During the Iasi pogrom, the Romanian army in cahoots with the Iron Guard and the local police murdered 13,000 Jews in broad daylight. Jews were arrested by the hundreds and forced onto overcrowded cattle cars with no food or water. Most met their deaths due to suffocation and asphyxiation.
Hava, don't hurt yourself. I'm coming.
Did Uncle Jacob, Uncle Iju, and Cousin Ilukuda get cleared by the police, Papa?
No, Yehuda. They died on death trains. Mila, I'll be back.
My aunt Hava tried to kill herself when she learned that her husband, my uncle, and her son had been murdered. My father sat with her day and night, soothing her as she processed her grief. I also learned something else during this dreadful period. You could save your life if you were willing to pay.
Jews! Any Jews live here?
Mama, look, it's the captain.
Come outside, we still have to clear you.
I remember this like it was yesterday. We gathered outside. A Jewish man I knew, Mr. Wasserman, whispered something to the captain.
Jews, give me your jewels, your gold watches, your diamond rings, your pretty necklaces.
And so they did. The greedy captain collected heirlooms and jewels, stuffed them into his shirt, and said,
"Long live the Jews. Should anyone bother you, just have them call me."
When I grow up, I will fight so this does not happen again.
After Romania was bombed by the Allies and invaded by Soviet armies, King Michael I led a coup d'etat and removed the government of Nazi sympathizer Ion Antonescu. This placed Romania on the Allied side, and Romania's fate was swayed by the presence of Soviet troops who occupied the whole territory.
In 1944, when the Soviet troops advanced, they started bombing Iasi. It was very dangerous, and we had to get out. My father rented a truck filled with vegetables, and we drove to Bucharest, pretending to ship produce.
I built another store in Bucharest, and eventually we bought a house. The war ended, and when the communists took over Romania, they accused the Jews of being capitalists.
They nationalized my husband's business, and he went to work as an accountant.
I went to Israel in 1950, and I served in the Israeli army. after I received a degree in economics and political science from the University of Jerusalem. In 1954, I married the love of my life, Leah, and together we raised 3 wonderful boys. In Israel, I worked for the Israeli aircraft industry, the Ministry of Defense, and in New York, I worked even for the film industry. Since 1998, when I retired, I decided to dedicate my life and my work to Holocaust survivors issues. I'm the president of Holocaust Restitution Committee. I'm the president of Holocaust Survivors in Queens. I am a member of the board of directors of the Claims Conference, and I serve in many committees related to Holocaust survivors issues. Giving up is not an option, not for us and not for the next generation. The Nazis wanted to exterminate us, but we survived. We'll continue to fight against anti-Semitism, racism in this country and all over the world. We will survive, will rebuild our lives, and Hitler will be in his grave. Probably he turns over because he didn't succeed to exterminate us. We will continue to rebuild, we'll survive.
Our dear friend Eva Firestone was 93 and a half when she passed away in early March of this year.
If she was here today, she would tell you all about her childhood in Vienna and overcoming many childhood illnesses.
She would also tell you about her family's escape from Austria to New York City at the beginning of the war.
She would tell you about her beloved brother Freddie, who was her best friend.
She would tell you about attending Hunter College at a time when it was rare for women to do so.
She would tell you about meeting her husband Mark in their world travels.
She would tell you about her son Renee and his garden, and her golden-hearted daughter Kathy, who cared for her until she died.
She would tell you about writing poetry and about her photography.
She would also want you to know all about her mother, Frederica, who saved her life and who was her greatest influence. And if Eva was here today, she might say,
"If it wasn't for this pandemic, we could have been together. And I would have you all at my kitchen table, and I would cook for you. Life is not easy, but you got to make the best out of the ingredients you've dealt with."
Chapter 1, Childhood Illness and Healing, made with the ingredients of fear, courage, and relief.
The setting was a comfortable Jewish home in post-World War I Vienna. I was the youngest. We lived with my father Shandor, who worked in the leather business, my older sister Erica, my brother Freddie, and my mom Frederica. My mother was just amazing. She was a swimmer, a fantastic cook, and an accomplished fencer. That is, until she married my father.
You must trade in that saber for a cooking spoon.
I had just about every childhood illness imaginable before the age of 10. I had diphtheria, pleurisy, and tuberculosis of the bone. My mother understood nutrition and herbs. It was her knowledge, in fact, that saved me.
Eva, I know you're scared, but I want you to try this. It has rose hips, hibiscus, mullein, and marshmallow root. It's good for your lungs.
From the doctor, Mama?
No, Eva, from my own research.
The doctors prescribed mountain air to help cure me.
So we occasionally traveled to a small village in the Alps. Yet, we weren't the only ones who enjoyed life in that village. The Nazis started coming to town more and more. In 1937, the innkeeper wrote to my parents,
"Don't ever come back here, or they'll kill you."
So we returned to Vienna. Then, I developed a kidney tumor and had to go to the hospital. No one knew if I would survive. That was in 1937, and by 1938, Hitler was at the door. I had an operation in the hospital for the tumor, and for a while, only morphine injections eased the pain. Thankfully, the operation was successful. Maybe things will be normal now.
Yet one fear was replaced by another.
The countdown began. The good life we had known started to dissolve one day at a time. The chapter of sudden loss.
Austria got annexed and incorporated into Nazi Germany in March of 1938. Once in power, the Nazis applied anti-Jewish legislation in Vienna, excluding Jews from Austria's economic, cultural, and social life.
A letter came for you.
We regret to inform you that, as per the recent changes in the government, we can no longer support your employment. I knew this would happen.
By that time, I had already been kicked out of the public school and had to go to a Jewish school. And then one day, where is Mrs. Erdheim?
She is not here today.
Well, what about Mrs. Deutsch?
She is also not here.
But she was here yesterday. Mama, Mrs. Deutsch is missing now. I know, Eva. Listen, you mustn't ask questions or talk about this outside of this house. But what is happening? We are trying to get out of Vienna.
You want out, you'll get out. You got money, you get visas.
Visa from Cuba, denied. Colombia, denied.
Scoundrels. It's time to write to your sister.
America.
One lucky day, we received an affidavit in the mail. My father's niece, Jehuda, and her husband, Ernst, agreed to sponsor us to live in the United States. Ernst vowed to support us on the small salary he made playing in the orchestra at Radio City Music Hall. My older sister, Erica, had already left for Israel, but there were other complications. My father was born in Czechoslovakia and my grandmother in Poland, which meant that they were not on the Austrian quota. If we went to America, we would have to leave them behind. My mother had to make a painful choice.
You must take Freddie and Eva while you have the chance.
But you might not make it out, Shandor.
We don't know.
No, we can't know. But we don't stand a chance as a family if we all stay in Vienna. All right, I'm going to take Freddie and Eva to America. I will never forget seeing my father and my grandmother at the railroad station waving goodbye to us. That was the last time I saw my grandmother. She never made it out of Vienna, and she perished in Auschwitz. The souls will not be stilled. In their annihilation they left, their voices hovering in air, falling like droplets, reminding humankind with, "Remember me." Eva wrote that poem much later in her life. Our journey to America came with a sense of hope and loss. We sailed on a ship called the SS Saturnia. Eva wrote about it in her journal and kept it for the rest of her life.
We arrived in Genoa and we boarded the boat on the 10th of December. We slept well until the next day when we started to get seasick, which practically lasted the whole trip. We sailed into the open Atlantic Ocean and saw nothing but water and starlight. Yet one night we had an unpleasant adventure. The ship halted to a stop, avoiding being hit by 3 French U-boats. It turned out that they were seeking some German spies. After this, we sailed on. However, at 5 a.m. on December 21st, we arrived in New York Harbor, and before us appeared the glorious Statue of Liberty.
We weren't out of the woods quite yet. At Ellis Island, the immigration officials turned away anyone who had a documented history of tuberculosis, which my Eva had as a child. It took our cousin Jehuda to convince the judge to let us enter. We were very lucky. And so we moved from Vienna to a room in the Bronx. I went to work as an overnight maid for a rich family, and I made certain I got my children everything they needed to survive. Things weren't easy for Freddie and Eva. They were alone a lot and had to learn how to do everything all over again in the new world and in English. During that time, Eva felt like a fish out of water. Speaking of which, Eva, I need you to go to the grocer's to buy fish and practice your English. Ask for a fresh piece of carp. You must inspect the gills to see that it's fresh. Otherwise, they will give you something old and smelly, okay?
I'll do my best.
Can I help you?
Hello? Carp, please? A fresh one.
You want a carp? Well, all right then.
And in case you were wondering, my husband did manage to get out of Vienna. He sailed to New York on the last direct boat in May of 1940. She should be home any minute now. Eva, we have a surprise for you.
Papa? Papa? You're here?
Oh, my Eva, I've missed you so much.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Yes, we were very lucky.
And so we went on in America together.
The Bronx was filled with magnificent diversity. Everybody got along, and Freddie and I had so many new experiences.
During the war, I started working in a factory sewing Eisenhower jackets. I was so good, apparently, they told me I had to slow down since the others couldn't keep up. I also went to night school, whatever it takes.
I marveled at American life and how much was available and at any time of day. When I got to the Bronx, I made a habit of putting on my suit at 9:00 p.m. just so I could buy an apple that late.
And I started school, of course. I went back to elementary school at first, but then I learned English so quickly they jumped me ahead several grades. I was actually very smart, it turns out. As you know, I ended up studying at Hunter College.
I looked after my sister until I was drafted into the U.S. Army and sent to Camp Ritchie with many other Jewish refugees. While I was there, I became friends with a guy named Eva Firestone. One day, I happened to show him some photos of my family, and he took a liking to Eva.
In the final analysis, it was Freddie who brought me to my husband. Oh, there's so many more chapters. I could tell you all about the international travels Mark and I took, or how I ran the office of Mark and his father's export business. Or I could tell you the story of my 2 children, Renee and Kathy, but we would need a week-long feast for that. So for now, I'll leave you with this. No matter what the ingredients life dishes out to you, you must always learn to make lemonade out of lemons and always stay
curious.
A poem by Eva Firestone.
The souls will not be stilled.
In their annihilation they left.
The voices hovering in air.
Falling like a droplets.
Reminding humankind with
Remember me.
Nature will not rest.
And in an angry way,
spews forth volcanoes, floods, and hurricanes.
Acknowledges its responsibility to the victims and says,
We acknowledge you.
And before we say goodbye, we want to say,
we feel loved.
We are all one.
And we send you a virtual hug.